Hey, beautiful friends. This is Sarah Blumenfeld, host of Networking Done Different, an outreach of an invitation to more.com. Do you love tea? I love tea. Love, love. I don't drink coffee, but I love tea. And here we have today the Tea Mistress. How does it get better than that? Amanda Vermillion has been a friend of mine for many years, and I'm delighted to have her on the show today to talk about what she loves. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's awesome. So I see from your website that you have a Tea Master certification. So tell us how
Yes,
that came to be.
Sure. So the story's a little weird, but I've loved tea for a long time, pretty much my whole life. And I had it before I started my business. I had a tea social group, so we would look for different tea related activities to do with the group. And one of the things we planned on doing, this was around late 2012, we were going to go to the Path of Tea in Houston, inside the Loop, for one of their Tea 101 classes. And very sadly, before, I guess a week or two before we were supposed to go to the class, the owner of the Path of Tea, Thea McCann, passed away very suddenly. You probably knew her.
I did, yeah.
A lot of people in our community knew her, yeah. And her husband Chris runs the store now, but obviously the classes were canceled, and I felt very sad. I didn't know her very well, but I knew her just from the tea room and just from around, the metaphysical community and stuff like that. And I was reading her obituary and thinking about going to the memorial service at Unity Church, and the article said it said that she was a certified tea master. And when I read that, this little light bulb went off in my head, like, what is that? I was actually coincidentally at a point in my life where I had been working in financial broker dealer and securities and investment advisor and banking compliance. And after the mortgage crisis in 2008, that field became very hard to find a regular job because so many companies shut down that were involved in finance. And that was a career that I thought was going to be my stable career. And it turned out it wasn't. And I was really at that point just thinking to myself, around that time, like, what, I need to find something else to do for a living that I'm going to be passionate about. And I felt like when I read that, why don't I make tea more than a hobby? Why don't I make tea my business? And let me find out what this Tea Master certification is. So she had done hers with the American Tea Masters Association, which now it's called International Tea Masters Association. But so in January 2013, I called Chaz Kroll, who was the head of that organization based in San Diego, and I spoke to him on the phone. He actually told me he was going to dedicate his first tea blending class to Thea because she had been bugging him for years to do a blending class.
Aww.
So I did the certification class, which was starting in 3 weeks. I flew out to San Diego. There were 3 days just 3 full days of learning about tea, tasting different teas. It was just, really overwhelming.
We're in heaven.
Really exciting. I was in tea heaven, yeah. And then it was 14 weeks of self-study. We had we'd read a chapter a week in the book, and we had tea samples we were evaluating and tasting and filling out evaluations. At the end, there was a test. There was a blind, what they call a blind evaluation, where you don't know what tea you're evaluating. And then there was a make your own chai blend. So that was a 14-week program. And I did that in 2013. Then I signed up for the blending class, the second blending class ever with them. And I did that that summer. And then I started my business in the summer of 2013. So,
oh, wow. So 10 years.
That's my story.
You've been doing this for 10 years then.
Yeah, I've been full-time since 2015 because as luck would have it, I, got a day job. I got a few day jobs here and there, contract jobs and things where that was sort of full-time, and I was doing the tea on the side. And then in 2015, it became full-time.
Okay. And how did you come up with the name, the Tea Mistress?
Well, that's a funny story too. Right before I was supposed to go out to San Diego for the class, I was telling my friends, a group of us had gone out to Boondoggle's Pub, which if you're local, you probably know where that is.
Yeah.
And we were sitting around and I was telling them about this. And one of the friends said, Tea Master, you're a woman. You should call yourself the Tea Mistress. And I thought, well, that's catchy. It's a little proper, like the mistress of the house, and it's a little naughty. So I thought, what a perfect name, and people remember it. So
yeah. Oh, that's great. I love that. So how do you help people learn about and enjoy tea?
Well, I think first of all, there are a lot of people like yourself who already love tea, so that's easy. They already like it. Maybe they already know what they want. Maybe they want to try something different,
Mhm.
so I try to either get them what they want, something similar to what they want, or something they've never tried before that maybe will blow their mind, after asking them a few questions. If someone is just getting into tea, like usually they have a curiosity because maybe they were drinking coffee and suddenly their body can't handle coffee anymore, or their doctor told them to cut down. Maybe they're just curious about tea because they hear people talking about it a lot and they only maybe grew up with iced tea, or they just or lip, some kind of store brand or something.
Right.
And I think it's my duty to really educate. I have a slogan on my website, Infusing Knowledge, and I do like to do that. You get me started on something I'm passionate about and I won't shut up. So
So this is going to be a really long interview, is what you're telling me.
probably. But one thing I implemented in 2019 is I started doing a tea of the month club, which is a great way to get little sample sizes every month. It's
Uh-huh.
great for people who want to try a lot of different tea, but they're on a budget. Like they don't want to buy a whole ounce, 1 ounce, 2 ounce, 5 ounce package of tea and get it home and not like it. So
Yeah.
that, it's sample sizes, but it's not a 1 serving sample. I do like a 3 or 4 serving sample. So it's enough to make a teapot full of tea if you want to share it with your friends, or it's enough to that, like if you love the first sample, there's a little more that you can enjoy. So I have that every month, and it's 3 samples per month that you pick out of a list. I do a curated list, so it's seasonal teas that kind of fit in with whatever time of year it is. I always try to do a variety. I try to have a few caffeine free because a lot of people are, there are a lot of people who don't do caffeine.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
let people pick out of that list. There'll be 7 to 9 different ones posted, and they get to pick their 3 out of that list. Some people like surprises, some people don't. I'm a person who surprises can kind of throw me off because I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I don't want people to have a guessing game of like, what is going to show up in the mail? What if I hate this? So I feel like this
Right.
gives them a little bit of control, you know?
Right. Right. And at the same time, presents them with options that they probably were not even aware were options.
Exactly. I do try to sneak in some things in there that maybe they haven't heard of before. And
Yeah.
there's a newsletter with it where it's got all the ingredients listed and explains what each of the different teas are. And I try to put a little tea term of the month so they get a little bit of education in it. And
Nice. So is your tea all loose versus like you'd buy at
um,
the store in the little bags?
tea bags, I have both actually. I do
Okay.
try to carry a mix of both. There's some people a lot of people love loose tea and they can't find it anywhere. So they're
Mhm.
happy to find someone local who carries it. And there are also a lot of people they're scared, like they've only ever had tea bags and that's what they're used to. That's their comfort zone.
Mhm.
When they're ready to learn about how to make loose tea and tea infusers and all that, I have all of that available for them to purchase and learn and find out what works best for them. But also there are a lot of people who maybe they take their tea on the road, like they take it to work or something, and they don't have time to mess around with loose
Right.
leaf tea. So they like to have the tea bags. So, or they're buying a gift for someone else. They don't know if that person has, ever used loose tea. So they'll buy the tea bags as well. So I do try there's a lot more loose leaf tea than there is tea bags, but I do have a good selection of both.
How do you curate your teas? Where do you get them from?
I am actually sourcing from a lot of different, probably too many, but I have probably about 8 different suppliers that I order from. It's a lot, but I'm always looking. I cannot compete with a large tea company or a supermarket as far as like getting the lowest price. I do my
Mhm.
best, but I'm not buying in the kind of bulk that they buy.
Sure.
But I do try to look for things that are different, unusual, things that people ask for that they can't find other places. I keep little notes on all that,
Mm.
and I'm always looking for something different, something that's a good quality. I'm also looking for companies that are great to work with, just on a convenience level, and also maybe they have a good story or mission statement behind their company.
Mm.
So
Do you feel organic is important or not so much in tea?
that is actually a great question. It's sort of controversial in the world of tea and the tea industry because some people feel that it's meaningless. For one thing, there are some parts of the world where they've been sort of doing traditional, sustainable cultivation of tea for thousands, hundreds of years, maybe thousands, and they either don't have the money to get a USDA organic certification to export to the US because it's not a big clientele of theirs, or they
Right.
don't feel they need it, like they do enough business without it.
Yeah.
I've heard from a few of my suppliers ever since 2020, when the whole supply chain really ground to a halt and slowed down, and the labor force was, inactive due to COVID. A
Mhm.
lot of companies stopped doing organic certifications altogether. So it is, I know a lot of when I do the farmers market events or herbal events, a lot of people do ask for organic. That's important to them, but to some people, it's not important at all.
Mhm.
And the prices have really jumped from I used to be able to maybe just mark something up 50 cents to, to $1 if it was organic. And now it's just not even, there's some things I don't even carry in organic anymore because I don't think I could be competitive price wise with it. So
So you feel that there's, even though it's not certified organic, it's still high quality tea. It's just that, as you said, they don't go through the process.
yeah, and that can certainly be, I mean, I'm not saying there are not teas with pesticides out there, because there are.
Mhm.
But I do think, I do try, I can get from most of my suppliers, I can get, if I ask for it, very specific information on the sources. If people on their own are trying to shop for the best teas that are organic or close to the sustainable method, the best thing to look for, I would suggest, is looking for what they call a single estate tea. And that's something that is grown on one specific tea farm. That's probably not going to be a flavored tea. It's either going to be like an herb, or it's going to be like just a plain black tea or green tea or something like that. But at least that way you can, you can contact that estate directly and learn more about them and stuff like that if you want full transparency. But I
Is that
do,
something that would be on the box? I've never
it
seen
could be,
that.
yeah. Like I have certain ones I carry that are single estate. I know exactly where they were grown.
Okay.
A lot
Okay.
of not, there are a lot of teas also that are blends, and you don't know for sure what's coming
Sure.
from where. But I do have suppliers who are transparent if I request that information
Okay.
separately. It may not be on the package they send to me, but I can obtain it from their website or ask them questions, and they'll respond quickly,
Gotcha.
which is
Gotcha.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. So you sell also tea accessories in addition to the tea, right?
I do. I have a lot of different, any type of tea infuser, a tea strainer, you can find different shapes, different sizes. I carry a lot of that. I have little unbleached paper tea bags you can fill yourself. I have cloth herb bags. I have little sugar tongs. I have tea tongs. I have drip catchers that go over your teapot. If you're having a fancy tea at your house with a nice tablecloth and you don't want to stain it. I
Mhm.
have little, all kinds of little gadgets, teapot shaped cookie cutters, um, teapot spout protectors for when you're, storing or transporting your teapots. You name it,
Fun.
I probably have a gadget for it. And some you have tea timers, so you can, time your tea for just the correct amount of time.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I just throw my, I was gonna say, I just throw my tea bag in, wait 5 minutes.
If that
I'm
works for
sure
you and
there's a
you're
better
happy
way,
and you like it.
right?
I've
Yeah.
noticed that a lot of people, just in general, like I was not a big green tea fan before I started my tea certification
Uh-huh.
class. I was more, and I still am more of a black tea person, but one thing I learned is that certain types of teas, especially a green tea, they'll get very bitter if you oversteep them.
Oh.
So for certain ones like an oolong or a green or something like that, or a white, like I really do try to pay attention to the time that it's steeping so that they don't
Mhm.
get that bitter oversteeped flavor.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the difference between an herbal tea and any other kind of tea? Is it
Yeah,
made
that's
with
another great question. So in the tea industry, they call anything that is not from the Camellia sinensis plant, the tea plant, which is where you get your black tea, your green tea, your white tea, your oolong, your pu'er. Um,
Okay.
that is specifically a tea. Now, anything that you're putting in a cup and drinking that is from a plant that is not Camellia sinensis, that is considered a tisane, which is a French word, Tisane. Generally, if I use that word, it confuses people,
Mhm.
if they're a layperson. So I'll say an herbal tea or herb tea or herbal infusion or something like that.
Okay.
But I know a lot of
Oh,
people throw the word
interesting.
tea around, and then especially in the US, we have that one, we kind of use that word for anything we're drinking, but really
Right.
there is a separation. My mother's French, so in my family it was like tisane or, infusion, herbal infusion for anything that was not tea. So some
Mhm.
countries there already are two words. English, we kind of have the one word, another word that the tea industry is trying to educate people about, but it hasn't really caught on with the mainstream yet. So
Right. You do tea parties for people or some kind of classes, things like that?
Yeah, so I do love public speaking. It's one of my favorite things to do. I can come to someone's house or their, place of worship or their job or their social group and do a talk if they want me to. I can bring a PowerPoint slide. I can do tastings as well, where I bring different teas for people to sample.
Hmm.
I can do them ever since the pandemic. I got a Zoom account, as a lot of us did, and I started doing them on Zoom. There were some really fun ones I did where I mailed out samples to people ahead of time to try with the Zoom meeting, and they could sip along while we were tasting.
Oh, brilliant.
As far as whether I do tea parties, that is tricky because I'm not a caterer, so I cannot do the whole people get the idea in their head of the afternoon tea with the sandwiches and the scones.
Oh,
I
okay.
have done that at home for friends and my social groups. I can't really legally do that too much,
Right.
for an
Right.
event
It's
because
food
I'm not.
license and stuff.
Yeah, I would probably either work with a caterer or I would ask the customer to do that themselves, and I
Mhm.
would just bring the tea.
Right, right. Still, it would be fun, right?
Oh, it's absolutely fun. And I have done it working with other people and I have done it for organizations. Well, I'll just bring the tea and I'll talk and they'll have all the food set up, which
Yeah,
is wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
I
Awesome.
have a confession to make too, which is that I'm not the world's greatest baker. I even with scones from a mix, I really struggle with that. That's not, I'm not gifted in that way. I do like,
Right,
I'm
stick
good
to
at
your
tea
gift.
sandwiches, but yeah, so that I leave to other people who are really good at it.
Right, right. We all need to share our gifts.
That is true.
All right, let's
And I would
see.
ideally like someday to find somebody who's a dedicated person who does the food end of afternoon tea and just really partner with them so we could both get out there. So if anyone's watching that and that strikes a chord with you, let's talk. Networking
Yeah,
done right, right?
that's right. Networking done different. So
Different, sorry.
different. That's okay. Um, what else do I have here? Oh, tea leaf readings. I didn't know you did that.
Well,
It's on your website.
it is on my website. So it's something I had done it just spontaneously about 25 years ago. I had gone out to dim sum with friends in New York City in Chinatown there. And at some of the dim sum places, it's their table rounds of 8. And if there are not 8 of you, you get seated with other people. So I had an experience where I was there with 3 friends and we were seated with 4 other people, 2 other couples. And I just spontaneously did tea leaf readings. And everybody was really blown away, including the strangers, because I didn't know them. When it's your friend, you can kind of read them and kind of fake it a little bit, not intentionally, but you can
Right.
kind of base what you're seeing on what you know about them. These
Yeah.
people, I was just doing a cold reading, and the very last person I read, I kind of got a fright because everybody else, I saw something in the leaves. And for this last person, I saw nothing and it scared me. And I just, I didn't know what that meant. Like, is the person going to pass away? Is their future unwritten because they're going to make their own destiny? Like, it could have gone either way. So I think I forget what I said, but I probably said that second thing and then moved on. But that scared me so much that I didn't do it again for decades. And then I started up again, maybe about, I don't know, 4 years ago. And I haven't done it a lot, but I have done it once at a party at my house. And then another time someone hired me to come to their home and do readings there. And it was amazing. Like, it was a skill I didn't know I had at all. And once again, these were people I didn't know. I knew the hostess barely and the other people I'd never met. And people were they were opening up and telling me things after I told them what I saw in the leaves.
Mhm.
And interestingly enough, after that, I took a tea leaf reading class at Pixie's Intent. She had a whole different way of reading than the way I was doing it. She was seeing letters and numbers, which I don't see that. I see shapes.
Okay.
And that was interesting too, because I guess I'm just an intuitive reader, but I was glad to see that there are other techniques. That was interesting to me, although I haven't implemented those yet. But I find it very emotionally draining to do the readings, so I don't do them often, but I
Okay.
will do them if requested.
Okay. So how does that work? Does somebody drink the tea and then what's left in the cup is what you look at?
Um, that, yeah, I mean, that's ideally what can happen. Now, of course, when you're in a party setting, you don't have time to really wait for them to drink the whole cup of tea. So what I did for the second party is I just had them sort of, you know, put the leaves in themselves and sort of hold the cup and swish it around. I did it in my gaiwan, which is a Chinese, I should have brought, it's a lidded teacup that they use in Chinese tea drinking. And I had them
Okay.
sort of hold it and swish it around and flip it out and pour it themselves. And then I just told them a little story while we were waiting for the leaves to open up and infuse.
Oh,
And
wow.
that gave us enough time to really get, I guess, a good shape of the leaves, and for that person to touch the leaves enough to maybe put their mindfulness into the leaves, and their thought, their intention.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Are there any like frequently asked questions that people have about tea that you find are fairly common?
Yes, people are very curious about caffeine content. That is very important to people, obviously, because, people have medical conditions or they want to sleep at night or something like that. So I do get a lot of questions about that. One thing I do try to tell people, there's a big misconception that white tea is low in caffeine. And that was published all over the internet and in news articles for maybe the past 10, 15 years. And that's that's hard info to get through to people, that it's actually not accurate.
Oh,
Another thing that influences the way your body feels the caffeine from the tea is that there's another ingredient in tea called theanine, which I
okay.
kind of call it the dynamic duo tea, caffeine and theanine. The theanine will kick in after the caffeine is wearing off so that you don't get that caffeine crash. And it also activates your brain waves to sort of make you feel relaxed yet alert. So what can be more important than the caffeine content is knowing the caffeine to theanine ratio, because that will really influence how you feel the caffeine. Like black tea, for example, not very high in theanine, so it feels more caffeinated to you than it really is, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
yeah, that's
And
fascinating.
also, there's just such a range too. Like, you can't just pick a number and say all black teas have X percentage of caffeine. It doesn't work like that either. It depends on so many different factors, just the year that it was grown, the terroir, where it was grown, how it was
Mhm.
processed, what type of tea it is. So there are a lot of, how much you used in your cup, things like
Right,
that, whether you
right.
cold brewed it, all kinds of things. So
So when
it's
people
really a
look at
big variable.
when people buy a box of tea at the store and look at it and go X amount of caffeine, that's really not true.
Now that I can't speak for, because I would assume if a manufacturer is putting a specific caffeine content on a box, I'm assuming they've done some studies, with their R&D department. I wouldn't assume they weren't,
Okay.
but I do think, what I do tell people is, if they're caffeine sensitive, it has roughly a 10-hour half-life depending on your sensitivity. And I would tell people not to drink it after a certain time of day if they are sensitive to it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Hmm.
I'm trying to think what
Maybe,
some other misconceptions are, or just things that people do ask about.
right.
I'm sure something will pop that people are a lot of the questions I get as far as the herbs, for example, a lot of people, the number one thing people are looking for is something to help them relax and sleep.
Mm.
Which just tells you how much of a problem just that is in our society. We're stressed, we're insomniac,
Yep.
and it's something people really, really feel that they need. Then coincidentally, the second most common thing is they want something for energy. So we have that
Right.
cycle, right?
Yep. Yep.
Of needing energy during the day and relaxation at night, and trying to stay awake at work, especially after that lunch, the post-lunch crash. When I worked a day job at a desk, I remember that you come back from, they had a big lunch and you're kind of sleepy and trying to
Yeah.
get your work done, and you don't want to have like a big cup of coffee at 3 in the afternoon. So what are you going to do,
Right. Right. Yeah. That's why some people take siesta.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm a very new age person, and I believe in the power of herbs, but I'm also a person who doesn't, I'm not against modern medicine. I think we live in a wonderful time that we have access to both of those things, and we can choose for ourselves, and I would never tell anyone don't take a pill if they need that pill.
No,
That's not my
I
place. I'm
meant
not
a
a
nap.
doctor, and I'm not,
Yeah,
yeah, a
no, I
nap,
meant a
is
nap.
good. A nap is good too. Oh, that's siesta. I was thinking
Siesta.
like,
No, siesta,
I
like
was
take a
thinking
nap
like
after lunch.
Sinesta or something, or like one of those
No,
sleep
no, no, we're not into
one of
pharmaceuticals.
those sleep pills.
Oh, no, 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 no. Boyd, um,
That's hilarious.
if someone would like to get in touch with you, do you do like an individual consultation, sit down with somebody and talk about what are you trying to achieve? What kind of things do you like?
I've never really done that. That's a good question. Usually if I'm vending at a market or some kind of pop-up event, people come up and ask me questions there. I'll get people emailing me with questions or calling me.
Mhm.
But no, that's a good question. I've never really had anybody who wants a consultation as far as something like that. But yeah, I guess I'd be open to that. Sure. I mean, obviously, since I'm not a medical doctor, I can't give any kind of health consultation, but I can certainly
Sure.
talk to people about tea if they
Right.
want to learn
Right.
more about it, you know?
Right. Like if I came to you and said, okay, I have this orange tea that I buy, and I love that kind of flavor. And then you could say, well, you might want to try this and this and this. Right.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
do that. People come to me and they have a certain brand that they love, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it was discontinued and they ask if I can make it. Reverse engineering is not my
Oh,
specialty. There are people who do that.
yeah.
I'm not great at it, but I can definitely recommend things that have a similar flavor profile that people might like.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
do, and it does make me happy when somebody, you know, gets a suggestion from me and they tell me they love it. That does make me happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Is the best way for people to follow, like where you're going to have a market and stuff like that, to follow your Facebook page?
Yeah, I do have a website. It's theteamistress.com. And on there's my Google Calendar, which you can look on there and see where I'm going to be. I'm very active on Facebook. I do try to post daily. So, you know, again, you can look there and see what events I have coming up as well. And I do have an email list. I'm not going to spam you with 3 emails a day. You know, I may send 1 or 2 a month, but I will, if I have an upcoming event, I will email people about that as well. I'm also
Mhm.
on Instagram. I did leave Twitter, but I'm now on Threads too. So that's 4 places where you can find me: the website, the Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. I'm also on Pinterest, but I really honestly haven't done very much on there besides post some photos. So
Okay, and you're on there as the Tea Mistress, right?
yes, so on Facebook, it's under the Tea Mistress, correct? On Instagram and Threads, I'm Tea Mistress Amanda.
Okay, okay, good, good. All
And my
right.
phone number is posted on the website. It's posted on Facebook. I get people who text me all the time. I'm up late, you know. Don't worry about waking me up with a text. I'll turn the phone off if I don't want to be bothered. So don't feel like you're bothering me.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to cover regarding tea or your business as we wrap up?
Yeah, let me think. I did talk about the tea of the. Oh, so I should mention that I also have things I also have lots of vintage and modern teaware. So if you're looking for a special gift for somebody, a teapot or a teacup, a tea glass,
Mm,
a Chinese tea set, even coffee pots, kettles, anything like that, little espresso cups, children's tea sets. If you're looking for anything like that, I have a house full of this stuff that I need to really get out of the house. It would make my husband so happy if we could walk around our downstairs storage area again. Those are things that they're a little complicated for me to bring to the pop-up markets and the events. I have certain events where I know those things will sell and I'll bring them, especially around the holiday season.
mhm.
People, you know, this is something I want to speak to as well. We feel like we can't have nice things for ourselves. We can buy nice things for
Oh,
our friends and loved ones, but we
right.
feel guilty buying a beautiful teapot or beautiful teacup for ourselves. We feel
Mhm.
guilty about it, you know, or a piece
Yeah,
of beautiful teapot jewelry, which I don't know if you could see this. I sell these as well, and they're sterling silver. They're
that's
tiny
pretty.
teapot jewelry. We don't even want to take out the good china for ourselves. You know, we'll use our mug. And I'm like this too, you know. And so there's some days where I'll just sit down, I'll make myself take out my prettiest teapot, my
Mm,
most beautiful, a fragile teacup, a pretty spoon, and a plate that has to be hand washed. And I'll take all this stuff out because just to remind myself that I don't need a special occasion or a friend over to do
right,
this. You
right.
know, tea time can be a special occasion whenever you want it to. So
That's
treat
such a good
yourself to
point.
some beautiful teaware
Yeah,
and use it.
it's really a good point because I mean, you're really putting the energy out there of I'm worth it. I'm worth celebrating. I'm worth having beautiful things, using beautiful things. And that's just a good energy to activate.
I agree. I read so just to go on a total sidetrack, but I had read an interview with Beyonce where she mentioned what her favorite perfume was. I guess they asked her, what's your favorite perfume? And she said what it was. And she said that when she doesn't have to go anywhere and is alone in the house, she'll put it on herself in the house, you know, just
Mhm.
to make herself happy. So the
Yeah,
same principle applies to, you know, do things for yourself when you're alone that you would only do with friends, because you're
right.
your own friend too, right?
There you go. Absolutely. Well, Amanda, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for this information.
Thank you. It's yes, as you can see, I have a trouble shutting up when I start talking about tea. So
It's
I could
perfect.
probably talk your ear off later too if you want.
Well, I love it. Thank you so much for being on the
Thank
show.
you.
Thank you, friends, for listening. Always appreciate you tuning in. If you would like to be interviewed, please email me at networkingdonedifferent@gmail.com. Bye for now.
Bye.